Welcome to lesson number one of what will be a series of potentially 40 lectures, 40 lessons that are aimed at educating the public about what is happening in our public school systems. My name is Dick Garrett. Now I'll introduce myself more completely in the second slide, but I am here to help you understand where we stack up as a nation. So here we go with the lesson. As a nation, we have let our public schools lapse into mediocrity, and we must make changes. If you are an American and value education and treasure this country, I ask you to persevere and gut through this material, at least enough of it to get the picture of what's going on. We need to make changes, and in order to do that, we need you as a citizen to understand why these changes are essential. I will warn you at the outset that these lessons are serious stuff and won't be a lot of fun. But once you see how poorly we are doing, I hope you will be even more committed to read on. Here's my introduction. I am putting this in here because basically I'm just a guy who lives in a neighborhood and had a son who was a teacher and decided to get involved. I would hope by the time I'm done here that you will feel that I'm a reasonably good candidate for being able to do a study like this. So I live in Indianapolis and I present as a concerned citizen. I have no banner that I'm waving for any particular organization. I am the founder of a group, a website called Elevate Teachers, but that's not a political movement. It is basically an effort to get the teachers some recognition they so badly need. I attended DePaul University in 1957. In 1959, I transferred to Purdue University, decided rather than be a physician, I wanted to be an engineer. So I ended up graduating with distinction in engineering and ended up getting a Master's of Science in Engineering a year later in 1963. Later on in that year, I went to Northwestern University and started my journey on a PhD in operations research, basically applied mathematics. And I completed this degree in 1968. Some of my career highlights: I was in management at Eli Lilly and Company for 27 years. I retired in 1993 to take a position on the faculty of the Kelley School of Business at Indiana University in Bloomington. I taught there for 6.5 years. Miscellaneous things. I was a management consultant after I left Lilly with a bunch of other Lilly people. For years at Lilly, I accredited engineering programs around the United States as a part-time occupation. I have facilitated approximately 60 long-range planning sessions for various profit and nonprofit organizations under the banner of the Executive Service Corps. I published in the Harvard Business Review, won an award at the Kelley School of Business for the most innovative new course in the Kelley's MBA program. And lastly, at Lilly, I was a leader in their Total Quality Initiative, which becomes relevant as we will see later on in this talk. Here's my name again, and I'm simply pointing out that I have been doing educational research since 2013. Since my doctorate is not in education but in operations research, I am not able to talk about how to teach reading, how to teach math, and so forth. I'll leave that to the people who have been trained to do that. I want to look at it from a big picture point of view, look at this problem. One of the important attributes that I possessed that makes all of this possible is I had a son, John, who was an elementary teacher for 16 years. His frequent late afternoon calls alerted me to some of the problems in education. In December of 2017, Rowman and Littlefield published a book, my book, called The Kids Are Smart Enough, So What's the Problem? A Businessman's Perspective on Education Reform and the Teacher Crisis. This book led directly from some of the work that I did with our son and other teachers at a local elementary school. So that's what started all of this. So rather than write another book, which I'd like to do, but I've decided against it, I'm going to capture my new findings and thoughts in this series, Lessons on Education. Each lesson will be short and on target. February 3rd of this year, 2020, I addressed the Indianapolis Science Tech Club, and the title of my talk was this: Education, the World's Largest Competition, the Key to Future Economic Viability. This is something I feel deeply, that we are in competition, and I don't think most of us appreciate that. So I found very little to say that is complimentary about this American system of ours, and it's sad because it used to be the envy of the world, but that is no longer the case. It was envied because the U.S. provided free public education to every child in America, and for the most part, it was a quality system. It produced students who were able to be an active part of a marvelous story, the unfolding of a great nation abounding with technological innovations, patents, strong political systems, and substantial economic prosperity. In the post-World War II period of this expansion, America was a great economic power, a position facilitated by the fact that many of our economic competitors had been decimated by World War II. As these economies in Europe and Asia began to get their economic footing, they chose to emulate the U.S. school system, but because they had so much ground to catch up, they built education systems that were even stronger than ours. For some reason, the U.S. became complacent and began to reduce the rigor of its educational offerings. Interest began to move away from academics towards athletics, and student athletes were the heroes of the school systems. In the 1980s and 1990s, there was a deep movement in this country aimed at the preservation and enhancement of child self-esteem, with the objective of never letting a child feel as though they were not successful. Any kind or degree of failure was to be avoided at all costs. This quotation that we're going to listen to is taken from an article in Psychology Today, an issue dated 2011, and the title of the article is The Gift of Failure. What the essence of this article is that you do your children a favor by letting them fail. The self-esteem movement has done an entire generation a deep disservice. Self-esteem is not something conferred, it is earned through taking risks and developing skills. When children stretch themselves, they expand their sense of their own capacity, and they feel confident to tackle the next challenge. Let's watch this fun and insightful video from Steve Harvey.
What's wrong with kids these days? I can't really tell you what's wrong with kids, but I can tell you what the hell wrong with parents. See, sometimes it's the parents. You know what I'm saying? They always trying to protect their kids' feelings. Have you noticed that lately right here? Now they got these things called participation trophies, where if your child just participate, he get a trophy for just showing up. But kids need to know that when you grow up, you ain't finna get no trophy. You might as well start making adjustments now. I don't believe in that. If parents really want to protect your kids, stop pushing your kids into things that they not good at. Then you ain't got to worry about a participation trophy. You know your fat son can't run. No, why is he on the track team? Now he depressed every Friday because he done took last place. I'm just being real with you. And get out of these coaches' faces mad at the coach because your baby ain't in the game. Why is little Tommy not playing? Tommy ain't playing because Tommy ain't caught a ball in 3 years. Then the coach finally do put little Tommy in the game. Now they losing. Now you in the coach face want to know why we losing games. Because we got little fat Tommy in left field. That's why we losing games. All right. Let me put it, because some of y'all look shocked. You're not supposed to talk about a baby like that. You ain't had to deal with kids like that. I got 7 kids. I got 5 grandkids. I deal with them all my time. I just raised my kids. Let me put it this way I can. Some kids are made for playing ball. Some kids can ace a math test. Some kids is brilliant as scientists. Some kids is born to be in the band. Some kids just supposed to carry and wave the flag. That's just how God made them. It ain't nothing wrong with that. One of my daughters, long time ago, made the cheerleading team. I go to the game, I'm just watching girls getting thrown up in the air. So I just walked up to my daughter after the game. I said, baby, when they gonna throw you in the air? She said, for real, Daddy? She said, you gonna go there? You know good and well why they can't throw me in the air. She said, if they do throw me in the air, which one of these little kids gonna be standing there to catch me when I come down? And I understood that, because that's how I raised my kids. My daughter on the cheerleading team is what's called the base. Then you got little girls on the team, that's the flyer. That's them little skinny little girls. Just sing, just sit, they all in. You can't be 5'9", 170. You ain't going in the air. I'm talking about my kids. That's how I raised my kids. Just find out what your kids do best and support that way. Just support your kids what they do best. Because you keep going along with these participation trophies, you're going to mess around and have a 36-year-old son looking for an award just because he showed up for the 3rd shift at Arby's.
One thing I have observed in my research is that schools have removed almost all consequences for anything. I heard a story the other day about a teacher who had a student who seldom attended class, didn't take the exams, didn't turn in the homework. The teacher tried to fail the student, but the administration told him to find a way to pass them. This totally removed the direct consequences from the student, and by the way, it made the school's data look good. Confidence comes from competence. Confidence comes from competence. We do not bestow it as a gift. Accompanying to these changes came the faltering status of teachers and education in general. Perhaps it was because teachers were authority figures who had the power to wound a child's self-esteem. Our objective in this series is not to diagnose when and why our school systems stopped delivering quality education programs, but to say, here's where we are, so what are we going to do to fix it? Many of you may not believe that America has a problem, but that is the challenge that I face, to open up your eyes to the facts and realities of an inadequate public school system. My goal in these lessons on education is to mold public opinion by educating the public, that's you, about our shortcomings. To motivate you to influence educators and politicians that we need to do better. One of the important tools we use in this analysis is benchmarking, to compare our students to students from around the world. Now, here's how benchmarking becomes important. As you will see later, the majority of our high school students are receiving top grades from their teachers. A's are the most frequently awarded grade in our high schools. As you will see, these A's are a product of rampant grade inflation. On an international scale, of course, here's where the benchmarking comes in. Many, even most, of these students do not measure up as A students. Let's review how I started my talk. Some new dimensions have come to it. So I look forward to going through this. The presentation that's written up in the program guide on the website is this one. And but I have another one that's more for like sports fans, let's call it that way. And I call it Education, the World's Largest Competition, the Key to Future Economic Viability, the Playing Fields of the World's Classrooms. Here's a quote from Andrei Schrecker, who is the most knowledgeable person about international education in the world. He said the quality of schooling in a country is a good predictor of its economic viability. And if that is the case, then we got trouble here in River City because it's not a pretty picture. So I'll be doing a rundown of the U.S. team and some talk about the competition. And the competition I picked. Andrei Schrecker is a German. He's the one that made the quotation that I just gave and is one of the world's greatest and most renowned experts on educational systems from around the globe. He heads up PISA, the Program for International Student Assessment. This program examines on a 3-year cycle approximately 600,000 15-year-old students in 79 countries. How many of you believe that there is a competition between nations in education? Here's what Arne Duncan says. Arne was the Secretary of Education for the United States in the 2010 period. That is the reality of what U.S. school children are competing against in the global economy. And it is a reality that many parents, lawmakers, and voters in America still have not yet fully grasped. In practical terms, globalization means that U.S. students will have to compete throughout their careers with peers in South Korea, Canada, China, European countries, and India, and other rapidly developing states.